a video on fondant potatoes for one of my sister's oldest friends and one of the nicest people on the planet, Rich Chilito. So these are fondant potatoes, quite a chefy thing to do, but you can do them at home, relatively straightforward. It's not particularly a recipe, it's more of a technique than anything. So you need extremely large baking potatoes. Get them in the supermarket, you get them in packs. What you need to do is you need to make sure that they are of a good size, and you need to make sure that the mold that you're going to use to cut out them is they're certainly a lot bigger than the mold, if you can imagine, like that. So they're quite wasteful, so I always peel mine and then I can do something with the trimmings from the potatoes. Otherwise you just sort of putting things in the bin, you're wasting money, you're wasting food. It's not a good thing. So I always peel them and then I can turn the leftovers into mash, or I'm going to do I've got an idea for a dish later on in the week, so that's what I'm going to use them for. So peel them, and then you want to square them off. So they also want to be quite deep as well, so they don't want to be flat, they want to be kind of quite deep, because you want the potato to be of a decent size. And if they're flatter than that, you're just going to get small potatoes like that, and you want something that's quite proud. You need to square them off so they're nice and flat. So you can take that bit off there and that bit off there. We'll do a few and then you can see what I'm doing. So that one there. So you're going to make it like a barrel shape. And also by flattening them off, they're going to be nice and flat on the work surface, so they're not going to rock around. And it's quite a dangerous thing, so you want it to be nice and secure. So flatten them off. Oops. So we'll do 4. You always need to buy more than you need, because things go wrong with them. Not particularly in the cooking process, but what we're going to be doing is we're going to be driving this pastry cutter through the centre of the potato, and it's quite a hard thing to do. This is a proper pastry ring, so it wasn't designed for this purpose, but it was a pastry ring and then I sharpened it. That's what I did, but I used to use these ones that you used to buy from cookware shops in the supermarkets in the past. The only problem with these is they've got a little bit of flex to them, so you don't get perfect circles, which is, I kind of wanted perfect circles when I was making these in kitchens. But they're still, you know, I mean, and they also might break, so you might be able to cut the ones out that you've got, but this might end up breaking. So potentially you might need a couple of these. Might have to run out and buy another one. So I bought a proper pastry ring, which is very secure, and then it's not going to bend or break or anything like that. So square it up on there, and then we're going to push through gently. Like that. So that happens at the bottom. Nothing much we can do about that, but we'll trim that up later. So it always happens, but we'll trim that up when we do it. So then we'll just cut that off there, get rid of that with the trimmings. I'll use that, I'm not going to throw it away. And then we'll see if we can, it might have been the air, so what we'll do is there we go, twist. That's what we used to do. So we used to twist and then we get a better cut. So that's a better one. Get rid of that, get rid of that, find the centre, and then push through. So that should be fine. We'll do the other one. You can prep them into these discs a few days in advance and they'll sit in the fridge. Depending on how much work you give yourself over Christmas, you can just let them, we'll just do that. That'll work. So you can prep them and then you can leave them in the fridge for a couple of days, easy peasy, and then that gives you more time to do other things. It's just if you have got a lot planned, it's certainly one of those things that we always had lots of those in the kitchen. So now what we're going to do is we're going to trim them up a little. So that's a little bit rough, is that one. So we'll just take a slice off it. And then this is the really important bit. What we need to do is you need to take off these hard edges. So it's just a simple case of gently going around with your knife. You could use a peeler, that would be fine, but we just need to take off that sharp edge, because if anything's going to stick in the pan, it'll be that. And then we need to do the same on the bottom as well. So we'll do all 4, and you can get an idea of what you need to do. And also, by taking that off, we get a circle on the inside, and that'll caramelise with that circle. It'll give us a nice, neat circle of caramelised potato, and then so it looks particularly pretty as well. But it's also practical because it'll stop them sticking to the bottom of the pan. So that's not so bad. So we'll just go around the edge. Of course, what we're going to do is we're going to cook the best edge first. So we're going to cook this edge first, and that's the bit that will serve upwards. So people will see that. They won't particularly see this rough bit round on the bottom of it, you know. So we'll serve the good side up. So that's that. We'll go around there. That was fine. So that's not too much of a problem. It's all right because we'll serve that at the bottom. There. Take this off here. Right, and then what we need to do is, once we've done all these, is they are covered in potato starch, so we need to wash them to get rid of that potato starch. Otherwise that's another thing that's going to potentially cause them to stick, so you need to wash the potatoes. Not a problem if you're going to have them in the fridge in some water for a couple of days. That's not a problem, they're naturally going to wash themselves. But we've just got a container here, and we'll drop the potatoes in like that. And then it just gets rid of the excess starch on the outside, so that's not going to cause any sticking. Right, so the next stage is we need a good quality pan. You can use a non-stick frying pan, I can imagine, but it needs to be a good quality and it needs to be nice and thick on the bottom. A thicker pan is good because it dissipates the heat evenly, and that's kind of what we want. So, good quality pan. And we are going to put a horrendous amount of butter into the bottom of the pan. There's about 175 grams of butter here, but you're not going to eat all the butter, so it's not too bad. But we want the flavour from the butter to go into the potatoes. And it's Christmas. It's only once a year, so why not? So slice the butter down, and then we're going to pack it into the bottom of the pan. That. So we'll layer this on the bottom of the pan, and then we're going to set the potatoes on top of the butter. That. Oh, would you know? Just good enough. So squish it down, it can be fine. I mean, once we've cooked the potatoes, I mean, you can use the butter. It's gonna clarify, and it'll lose a bit of flavour. But you can use the butter in the bottom of the pan. You don't have to throw it away. I've used it in mashed potatoes, and it's tasted lovely. So, butter smashed into the bottom of the pan, and then we're going to put the potatoes on top. So, we're gonna cook the service side of the potatoes first. So, the nicest side, we're going to cook that first. So they go downwards into the pan. Press them down slightly into the butter. So that's just not as nice. So that's going to be the bottom. This is nicer. That's going to be the top. So top down. Next one. That's going to be the top. So top down. There we go. That's the bottom. So that's the top. So top down. What I'll do is I'll do the roast potatoes because you don't need to see me doing those, and then what we'll do is we'll come back and I'll have the potatoes. We'll have the potatoes on top of the stove cooking, and we can show you, and also talk about salt. But I'll finish the potatoes and then we'll start cooking, and then that's where we'll be after I've done them, because you don't need to see me doing any more of this. So we have got 8 fondant potatoes there in one pan. I probably use 200 grams of butter, if I'm honest, or maybe even a whole pack, seeing it's Christmas. I will just I forgot to measure these cutters, so they are 6 centimeters by 4.5 centimeters. Something around that size is just about ideal. This next process, what we're going to do is we're going to cook them. It's on So like a medium burner at the back. If you've got a solid top cooker, that's even better because that dissipates the heat even more evenly. So what we're aiming to do is we're going to add some water, and we're going to cook these slowly with the paper from the butter on top. What we're aiming to do is we're aiming for by the time the water has evaporated and the potatoes start to colour, they should be kind of cooked. So it's kind of timing cooking with evaporation. The paper on the top is going to stop too much water evaporating off. If we need to add a little bit more water to it, we can add a little bit more water, but we're aiming for the potatoes to be half cooked, because we're going to turn them over and cook the other side, to be, by the time the water's evaporated and they've started taking a little bit of colour, they're going to be half cooked. So this is a little bit of a trick. It's not that tricky, you just have to watch them. But what you can do is you can cook them on both sides, and then they can keep in the fridge for 3 days. So you could potentially have 2 or 3 goes before Christmas, make a mess of the first 2 goes, and then have another go, and they will keep in the fridge, and you can just warm them up. So it's kind of it's quite forgiving that way, you know. You don't have to do them on the day. To do them on the day, I wouldn't want to do them on the day. So quite generous with the salt, because we're imagining we've got 8 potatoes here, so we need to season accordingly. So a good pinch, not on top of the potatoes, but just around there. So a good 2 pinches of salt. I know that might sound like a lot. It's not. The right amount of salt in cooking is the difference between restaurant food and home cooking. So I'll just add water. I don't know. I just add, and then I wouldn't know how much I'd added. I just add. So we'll do 6 tablespoons of water to start off with, and then butter paper on top, or a bit of like greaseproof paper or baking parchment will be fine. If you haven't got butter paper, you need to use butter. Don't use any oil, don't use olive oil, use butter, and it can be salted butter or it can be unsalted butter. If you're using unsalted butter, you just need to add a little bit more salt to it. Salted butter, you just need to add a little less salt, but that's a good thing. So turn the gas on. It can go on quite high to start off with, so kind of like, can't see that, but quite high to start off with, because what we wanted to do is melt the butter. And what we're trying to do is we're trying to cause an emulsion, so the water and the butter emulsify together, so they don't split, they are actually combined, and that emulsified butter is what's going to cook the potatoes and give them all the flavour. So we don't have that on just yet. So as you can see, butter's starting to melt already, so we can get it up to temperature. What's going to happen as well is, to get that nice crust on the bottom of the potatoes, just when they're just about cooked, they're almost going to be frying on the bottom of the pan, and to be frying on the bottom of the pan, there needs to be no liquid left. So, but we'll go through this when we get there. So up to temperature. Video's still going, I hope. Yeah, it's still going. And then not a lid on, because we want water to evaporate. So that's why we've got the butter paper. I did say that already, but I always have a habit of saying things twice. Certainly on important things. You can, what I would advise, if you're a little bit scared about seasoning, I would say that what we're going to do is we're going to, when the butter and the water starts to emulsify, you can taste it, and if it doesn't taste particularly salty, then you need to add a little bit more salt. But as always, it's very easy to add a little bit more salt than take it away. It's like waiting for a pan of water to boil. So what is going to happen is we're going to cook this one side and get a nice caramelisation on the service side of the potatoes, so the side that's going to point upwards, and then we're going to turn them over. We're going to let it go cool for a little bit, and then we're going to gently tease them away from the bottom of the pan, and then we're going to turn them over, and then we're going to repeat the process. So we'll add a little bit more water and then repeat the same process. So it cooks because the potatoes aren't completely submerged in the emulsified butter, we need to cook the bottom we need to cook these bits that are poking out as well. I have done them in the oven in the past, but that was when I was cooking a lot of them, and that's a whole nother thing. But if you're doing 8 or 10, this is a better way to do them because it's more controllable. I'll potentially do one about cooking in the oven sometime in the future, but not today. So as you can see already, the water's starting to boil, and it's starting to boil the butter into it, which causes an emulsion. Very chefy thing. But it's one of the tricks of trade. These are quite an old-fashioned thing to do now. Certainly we're looking at 35, 40 years ago when they were kind of becoming popular. They're a little bit old hat now, but still one of those things that are absolutely delicious. Right, so you can see the butter here hasn't boiled into the water yet, but as you can see there, it's boiling in, and that's what we mean by an emulsion. It's also a very good way of cooking fish as well, and also other vegetables. So if you are cooking green beans, boil them in water until they're almost cooked, and then you can cool them down quickly, and then you can reheat them in that type of emulsion, and they are absolutely delicious. That's another chefy trick there for you. If you wanted to, certainly you can do that with a lot of vegetables. And then if you're giving yourself a lot to do on Christmas Day, you can simply cook a lot of things beforehand, cool them down, and then reheat them quickly in that kind of emulsified butter and water, and they will taste absolutely amazing. So as you can see, all nice and emulsified now. So we're going to turn down onto a low heat. So we're going to basically slow braising them on top of the stove. Although anything done on top of the stove is actually classed as stewing, but it's like a slow braise. So it kind of wants to be bubbling about like that. Just a slow bubble, and then what that's going to do is the potato's going to soak in all that buttery goodness and all that salt, and they will taste amazing. So that's it. This process might take half an hour, it might take an hour. You just need to be a little bit patient with them. So butter paper on, and leave them until we'll come back when they've been cooking, and I'll tell you how long they've been cooking for, but that's about right for the moment. So that's it for the moment. Right, so this is kind of the amount of movement that we're aiming for. You can see that the water and the butter have emulsified in together, so all that goodness is cooking the potatoes. So it doesn't want to be any more than that, doesn't want to be any less. It's got a nice amount of liquid evaporating from it. We might need to add a little bit more water, but there we go. That's how it wants to be cooking. So paper back on, I can touch them. Yeah, they're going to be quite a while longer. They've been cooking for about 20 minutes. About 20 minutes. They'll probably need maybe 40, maybe 45, maybe 50 minutes. But there's no rush. Good things come to those who wait. Right, so if we listen carefully, you can hear that the potatoes are just starting to fry on the bottom of the pan. You can hear that? That's just starting. The water's just evaporated now. It's starting to change colour, is the butter. That means it's just starting to fry. They're not at the stage that we want to be them at for them to start frying on the bottom. Frying is kind of the wrong word, if I'm honest. So we just need to add a little bit of water. Yeah, because I imagine it's like if we say fry, I always imagine like a hard fry. It's like something that we're cooking kind of quite fiercely. Well, this is like a gentle fry that we're wanting to do, so it's like a caramelization. Should we just add a little bit of water? Then what that will do is that will re-emulsify the butter, and it'll just carry on the cooking process. So this is a stage where we just need to keep an eye on them, and we're kind of judging how much water to add, so they're not kind of cooking too fast. They want to be getting soft before we start wanting to give them a little bit of colour. So this is just a little bit of a tricky case, but this is going to give us that nice ring around the potatoes that will look it's very pleasing. So that's it. We'll let them carry on cooking. I might be tempted to stick a knife in one of them, but we should be okay for another 10 minutes or so, something like that. So we are now at the stage of the water has evaporated, starting to fry, and the potatoes are soft. We can just press on them and we can feel there's a little bit of give to them. Alright, if we want to, we can use a knife. So we can just press and the knife goes in relatively easy. So this is the stage where we need to be giving them some colour, which is, because we are frying the butter, it's going to take on a bit of a nutty flavour, which is called beurre noisette. Is it beurre noisette? Yes, beurre noisette. So we can turn up the heat a little bit, just to give them a little bit of colour. We need to be careful at this stage that we don't colour them too much. So it's just a case of gently turning up the heat and giving them a bit of colour. Like that. And then what we're going to do is, once they've got a bit of colour, we're going to let them cool down, and what we'll do is they'll firm up, so they'll be a little bit easier to handle, and then when they are not completely cold, or we might let them go cold, actually completely cold, and have the and let them set solid, but we'll see. We'll kind of play it by ear, to be honest. Most of my cooking is me winging it, if I'm honest. There's no 100% set recipes, so this will just give a little bit of colour. So what you can do, you can move the pan and you can see the bottom of the pan, and once the bottom of the pan starts to get a little bit of colour to it, we know the potatoes have got a little bit of colour to it. So we'll leave the covering off, because we want that steam to escape. We want the moisture to disappear, so it actually colours. So this will be it for maybe 5 minutes. We don't need to show that, we'll just show what it's like when it's done. So the butter is now at the stage what we call foaming. So this is the point where it starts colouring and turning into beurre noisette. So as you can see, the bubbles there, that dictates that it's showing that it's actually foaming. And if we move the pan, we can see on the bottom of the pan that the bottom of the pan is starting to take on a little bit of colour, which is the butter starting to burn. But that's okay. We're going to turn the temperature down, and we're going to control that caramelisation, and that's going to give us a nice bit of colour on the bottom. In fact, it might be there. Yeah, so if you imagine, you can see on the bottom of the pan there, just in there, that colour of the bottom of the pan is going to impregnate, for want of a better word, onto the colour of those potatoes. So we don't want to take it much further in that kind of colour. So we might just turn it off. Yeah, I think we'll turn it off. We'll turn it off, and then hopefully the bottom of the potatoes will have taken on that colour that's on the bottom of the pan. Fingers crossed. So we'll turn it off, we'll let it go cold, and then we'll upturn one of the potatoes and have a look at it. Because this is a thick bottom pan, you can see that the butter is still cooking. If you're worried about taking the butter a little bit too far beurre noisette, you can add a little bit of water now, and what that will do is that will stop the butter from cooking and caramelising the potatoes anymore. But I'm going to risk it, and I'm just going to leave it, and that should be fine. So what we'll do, we'll let that go cold, and then we'll have a look at the potatoes on the bottom. If we need to cook them a little bit more and give them a little bit more colour, we will do. I don't think we will, but we'll just upturn one and we'll have a look at it once it's cooled, cool enough to touch. They're a little bit soft as well at the moment, so I wouldn't worry that they might break apart. The first one to take out is always the difficult one. The rest once you can lever something underneath them, you've got a little bit of movement, then the rest of them are easy to get out. That's why you need to do plenty, in case one or two of them go wrong. But the butter's cooling down now, and as you can see, bottom of the pan, nice coloured. So that should have transferred onto the bottom of the potato. So we'll let that go cold, and then we'll come back and have a look at the bottom. Right, they have cooled. So let's see if we can get one moved. and then we can have a look on the bottom. So try this one, give it a bit of a wiggle. Doesn't want to come loose, we'll find one that does. Sometimes you have to sacrifice one just so you can get the others moving. Yeah. That one might move. Let's see what it's got. So, and we've got it. That one's come loose. So let's have a look on the bottom. I'm not gonna, it's getting a bit late, so I'm not gonna cook them anymore tonight. So, there we go. And that's exactly, well, not exactly what we want, but that's, bring it up a bit closer. That's how they want to look. We've got that nice ring around there, which is what my head chef always used to want. So they're lovely. We should now be able to get to the others a little bit easier. Just a case of teasing them away from the bottom and then flipping them over. So what I do is put that one in the place where the first one was, and then we'll move around to the next one. Just tease them. That one doesn't want to come just yet, so we'll try this one. That one wants to move. Just be careful with that one. Turn it over. Now that is exactly how they want to be. Absolutely perfect, that one. And then we should just be able to get into the other ones. So that one looks like it's coming away loose. You can feel that they are nice and soft. So when potato cooks, it's very soft, and it's hot, it's very soft. However, what you can do is when they cool down, they tend to firm up again. So that's good. That's another good one is that. And with those there, and we can get to that one. Like that. See if we can get this better angle on this one. I don't know if using a non-stick pan would be better, because you kind of want that caramelization on the bottom of the potatoes. So we can put that one back there. Then we've just got one to go. So I'm not sure if I've never used a non-stick pan to do this. I've only ever used a metal pan like this. And this one's going to be a bit of a bugger. This might be the one that wrecks, but that doesn't matter. You always make more than you need, and to be honest, people are always going to want seconds of these. So give that a little bit of tease. Yeah, this one's going to be a bit of a, oh no. There we go. Turn that one over. Actually, that's a nice one as well. So those like that. I'm not going to do it now because it's getting a bit late and I want a drink and to watch a film, but those are how they want to look. What we'll do is repeat the same process again tomorrow. A little bit of water. They won't take as long to cook because we only just need to cook the bottom. So a little bit of water tomorrow. Bring them back up to a temperature. Cook them in the emulsion. Let them cool down, and then that's fine. You don't need them to look that good on the bottom. We're just looking to cook them through, and then what we can do is at that stage, once they're all cooked, you can let them go cold, cover them, keep them in the fridge for 3 or 4 days, and they'll be fine, which therefore make Christmas Day dead easy, and these look extremely impressive. But we'll talk about warming them up, reheating them as well. But you could get them to that stage, cool them down, and then on Christmas Day, the last little bit of heat that you put through them would be enough to warm them through, cook them through, and then go out to the table and then have a lovely glaze on top. But anyway, that's it. Until the next So this is the finishing off of the potatoes. So the potatoes are more than half cooked, but we still need to cook the bottom of them. So same process again. We're pan on the heat, and we're going to add a couple of tablespoons of water. It's not going to take long to cook, so this is just, we need to add less water and just be a little bit more controlled about it. So heat on, water, a little bit of water in. We're adding less water because it's not going to take as long to cook, so we want that water to evaporate quicker than before. So we're not bothered about looking nice on the bottom because people aren't going to see that. This is just about cooking them and getting some butter into the flavour into the potatoes. So heat on, butter paper on, and then we'll let that cook for 10, 15, 20 minutes, something like that. Not too long, but just emulsion of the water and butter again. That was fine. Okay, that's it for the moment, and then we'll come back when they're just about ready, and we'll talk about what to do with them once they're ready. So we can now hear that the potatoes are starting to fry on the bottom. Listen carefully. They're starting to fry, so that means all the water has evaporated, and we'll just check if they are ready. The knife will go through nice and easy if they are ready. So yeah, they're nice and tender, so we know they're ready. You can now, you have a few options because you kind of need a few options on Christmas Day when you're doing cooking for quite a lot of people, how are you going to heat these through again, because they're now cooked but they can be kept for a few days. So you can leave them in this pan and reheat them with a little bit of water, bring them up to temperature that way on top of the stove, to make things a little bit easier, if you're going to do it that way and you worry about them sticking on the bottom of the pan, what you can do is you can transfer them to a fresh clean pan with the butter, and then and then you're not going to there's not going to be this sticky residue on the bottom that might make them stick and ruin the effects. If you are going to transfer them to another pan, which I kind of would recommend if you're going to heat them up that way, I would recommend that you put the butter paper on the bottom of the pan so the potatoes are resting on the butter paper in the pan, and then pour the butter on top of them, and then you'll be able to get them out of the pan a lot easier, one by one. You won't be able to lift them out like that, but you'll be able to get them out easier that way. That's if you're going to do the pan, but pans are unless you've got lots of pans, you tend to need to juggle lots of pans on Christmas Day. So what you can do instead, you can get yourself a tray, an oven dish like that, butter paper in the bottom, potatoes in there, pour the butter over, cover it, leave it in the fridge for a couple of days, and then you can heat that back through the oven at the bottom of the oven. Covered will be fine, with a little bit of baking parchment, not greaseproof paper. Greaseproof paper will fall to bits. You need baking parchment, or you can use that baking parchment on the bottom. Obviously, you need to pour the butter on as well, so that will keep them nice and moist. Just before service, before you put them on people's plates and things, best thing to do is just get a little bit of the butter and just to rub it like that over the top of the potatoes, and then it'll just make them look really shiny and really amazing. And that's just a little bit of a difference. So that's pretty straightforward, I think. Not for you. If you're half decent at cooking, you should be able to achieve those pretty straightforward. But that's it. Those are roast potato not roast potato fondants. They are potato fondants, and they are one of the nicest ways that you will eat potatoes ever, apart from chips, obviously. But they are wonderful. So have a go. I hope that's relatively straightforward. I tried to make it as simple as possible, and kind of included the questions that I would have asked the first time that I was shown how to make them. I think, and yeah. So I think I've covered everything with them, but they are delicious and really worth trying if you've got the time and the patience to do them. Okay, that's it. I'm sure. I think probably. I don't think that's it. I don't think there's anything more now. Yeah, you can reheat in a pan. You can reheat them in a tray like that. At push, you could do them in the microwave. at a push, but I think something like that covered in the bottom of the oven for 20 minutes, half an hour, just to get a bit of temperature through them would be fine. But obviously, Christmas Day is a struggle with oven space and top of the stove space, so kind of plan which way you're going to warm them up as according to what kind of space you've got on and in the oven. Microwave last resort, obviously, but there you go. They'll keep. They don't freeze particularly well because potatoes don't, but they will keep for 3 or 4 days in that state in the fridge. But there we go. Okay, that's it. I'm sure now.